My name is David Loxterkamp. I'm a family doctor who has lived and practiced in a small Maine community for the past 28 years. My father was a general practitioner, and I followed in his footsteps, delivering babies, rounding in the hospital and nursing homes, and making house calls on the homebound. What follows is an exploration of what I have learned in my nearly 3 decades of caring for patients, what matters to them, and what satisfies me. But since medicine is no longer a cottage industry, this is also the story of how my group practice grew and evolved. This is Belfast, a town of about 7,000 in the Shire town of Waldo County. Shipbuilding and sailing were the economic engine that built our beautiful brick downtown and American Greek Revival homes in the middle of the 19th century. Now, Bank of America and Athena Health have operations here, and tourism is a vital part of our economy. From the water, Belfast has an almost postcard-like serenity to it. There is a superficial simplicity and charm, especially in the summertime when the harbor is full of boats and the shops and restaurants are busy with tourists. John Berger, in his book A Fortunate Man, describes what happens to the inhabitants of small towns like Belfast. He wrote, "Landscapes can be deceptive. Sometimes a landscape seems to be less of a setting for the life of its inhabitants than a curtain behind which their struggles, achievements, and accidents take place. For those who, with the inhabitants, are behind the curtain, landmarks are no longer only geographic, but also biographic and personal." As a family doctor and county coroner, it is almost impossible not to attach a story to a building, or a bend in the road, or a familiar face I greet at the supermarket. The postcard you just saw was from before the turn of the 20th century and shows a scene remarkably similar to what residents in the 21st century encounter. Only the motor cars and stoplight betray the passage of time. The city is graced with remarkable commercial architecture and stately residences. But equally a part of Belfast is its poverty and sense of humor and boldness in the face of adversity. Our practice has been located near the hospital for the last 8 years. At both entrances, we have posted the emblem of the Camino, that great pilgrimage route across the north of Spain that has welcomed travelers for over 1,000 years. It is a reminder of the journey we are all on, more important than any destination. Our 10 exam rooms are all laid out exactly the same. Each has a window, and none of them separates the doctor from the patient by a computer. One of the most important rooms in our office is a conference room, where our therapist sees his clients and where the providers meet every Thursday morning for an hour-long support group. The rooms are far less important than the patients who enter them. Some make us laugh. Some old-time Mainers never laugh, even when you give them a second chance. Our medical staff has doubled in size and halved in age over the past couple of years, thanks to good luck with our recruitment. Seaport Family Practice has always nurtured a culture of change, responding to the needs of our patients and trends in the healthcare delivery system. We became a rural health center to support ourselves as the number of patients on MaineCare continued to rise. We have been early adapters of the electronic health record, integrated behavioral health, group visits, and integrative medicine. Though we convince ourselves that the years have made us wiser, the work has not gotten any easier. Belfast is a small community, but its services are spread out. This makes it difficult for patients with transportation issues, and even more difficult for the providers of those services to communicate with one another, even as electronic communication gets easier, even though we share the same patients. As they say, out of sight, out of mind. Wouldn't it be marvelous to bring those services under one roof and their providers onto the same team? The American consumer has been trained to have unrealistic expectations for health and longevity, believing that there is a pill for everything. But health and longevity are far from being a birthright, or under our control, or restored by the right prescription or right procedure. In fact, luck or bad luck plays an equally important role. Americans would like to believe that prevention always works, or if not, early detection will lead to a cure, or if not, that treatment is always better than no treatment at all. Unfortunately, what patients need most, to be listened to, is what doctors are least interested in providing. It takes too much time. It is poorly reimbursed. Doctors know that they can always end the office visit by writing a prescription, ordering a test, or scheduling a procedure. But it is by listening and examining that we earn the trust of our patients and engage the most potent agent in our armamentarium, the placebo response. Active placebos produce nearly the entire benefit seen in the treatment of anxiety, depression, and to a lesser degree, pain. But it's always good to remember that nearly every serious illness or injury is complicated by anxiety, depression, and pain. Overall, 3/4 of the benefit seen in 3/4 of our patients is due to the placebo response, and 3/4 of that benefit will last. Wendell Berry's definition that health is membership is something we intuitively understand. Illness and aging isolate our patients from their network of friends, from their connections to the community. We know that health and happiness are spread through these connections, as is our likelihood to smoke, or drink, or become obese. And even though patients look to us and say, "You're the doctor," we know that they must make the final decision about their own health care. How can we give them the necessary information to make that decision when we don't have it ourselves? We no longer know the natural history of untreated conditions, or how much their treatment costs, or how to take into account the biases or fears that influence that decision in both the patient and the doctor. The communication that is so necessary between doctor and patient must bridge different cultures that are often separated by social class, educational level, language, and of course, the world of healthy people versus invalids. It begins in our training. We have a skewed sense of where our patients live. They live, geographically and socially, in a world that is far from the academic medical center. In 1961, Kerr White and others looked at this issue and published their findings in the New England Journal of Medicine. In any given month, for an average adult population of 1,000, 750 will incur an accident or illness, and only 1/3 of these will contact a physician. Only 9 will be hospitalized, and just 1 will end up in a tertiary care institution. In other words, most illnesses are not cared for by doctors, let alone in a hospital, and still less in a teaching hospital. 40 years later, Larry Green's findings were exactly the same. During a clinical encounter, the doctor tries to fit the patient's reported symptoms into diagnostic categories. This, the doctor believes, will help the patient get better faster. Yet what goes on in the patient's mind is very different from what the doctor is thinking, and both hide their thoughts from each other. Doctors exude compassion for the patient's illness and authority over that illness, but inside, they may be judgmental or uncertain or worried about their liability. Patients have come in with one problem that they are sure the doctor can solve, but they hope that she will ask about the real issues they are too afraid or anxious or not insightful enough to mention. The patient-centered medical home is a new model designed to improve patient satisfaction, communication, and clinical outcomes in primary care. At the same time, insurers hope that it'll reduce waste and save money. At Seaport Family Practice, we've been implementing PCMH tools over the last 10 years. The most important of these are improved access through open scheduling, longer hours, and email capability, teamwork, measuring performance, allowing patients to see their records online, providing better communication between the office, hospital, nursing home, and specialty referrals, and responding to our patients' needs. With all the new personnel on the healthcare team, what is the role of the doctor? Are we administrators who lead the team and focus on superutilizers of the healthcare system? Will we be restricted to practicing at the top of our license? Nothing takes the place of really listening to our patients. A gentleman came to see me with classic symptoms of panic disorder. Rather than reflexively prescribing a medication, we explored the source of his anxiety. 12 years ago, he witnessed the drowning of his 6-year-old brother. Now married and ready to start his own family, he's fearful for his own unborn child. Because we have a behavioral therapist on staff, my patient got the help he needed when he needed it. The surest measure of treatment success are his 2 children that I helped to deliver. A father about my age called me to the ER one evening because his daughter was inexplicably ill. It turned out that she was withdrawing from heroin. I had no clue how to help her, and soon discovered that she was only the tip of an iceberg. Several of us in the office took additional training in addiction medicine and now prescribe Suboxone as part of an outpatient treatment program for opioid dependence. An older patient of mine came to see me about his diabetes. I asked him how he was doing, and he told me of the moose hunt he was on with his son that he had just returned from. Then he started to cry and couldn't stop crying, nor explain his tears. I asked him to come back in a week. He did, but had no idea why he had broken down the week before. I asked him to join a support group for older men that was starting in 2 weeks. He'd be good for the others in the group, I told him. Then spent the next 2 weeks asking every older man I met if they'd be interested in starting such a group. 10 of us have continued to meet every other week for the last 3 years. I receive the Writer's Almanac by email every morning, and from it I choose poetry to read to the old men of the Old Duffers Club and apply the words of writers to my everyday life. And what they say about Jewish dignity or the narrow aims of business applies to my own. Irina Klepfitz said this on the 45th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Ordinariness is the most precious thing we struggle for, what the Jews of the Warsaw Ghetto fought for. Not noble causes or abstract theories, but the right to go on living with a sense of purpose and a sense of self-worth in ordinary life. Is this not also what the sick and elderly under our care desire? From the pen of Dickens, we hear Scrooge implore his deceased partner, "But you were such a good man of business, Jacob Marley." "Business," cried the ghost, wringing its hands again. "Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business." What we have learned from experience and our own humanism should apply to our work. What, then, are our goals? To spend more time in the exam room with our patients. To integrate our healthcare team with behavioral therapists, social workers, health educators, or whomever the patient needs that day. To bring the varied services and providers together for the patient's behalf. To seek out resources for healing where the patient lives, that is, in community. And to practice the values of primary care. I have tried to express these values in a set of 14 aphorisms. The most important of these are as follows: that health is not a commodity. It cannot be bought and sold, and is as much a product of chance as it is access to medical care, as much the result of our genetic code as it is lifestyle choices. That belonging to a community and remaining connected to friends and family is what keeps us healthy and happy, and that every patient, no matter his or her chief complaint, deserves a doctor who will offer them conversation, friendship, and hope for their future. How will we achieve our goals? Not by following payment rules or waiting until the timing is perfect, but rather by doing and then evaluating what we have done. As Antonio Machado said of the pilgrim on his way to Santiago de Compostela, "Traveler, there is no way. The way is made by walking." This is David Loxter Camp for Seaport Family Practice in Belfast, Maine.